Hello, everyone. Oh, that was my timer. Hi, Judy.
Hi, Aaron. Hi, Judy.
Hey.
Hello. We probably won't get started to about 12:35, giving people to get on. And
You saw my updates then?
I did. I love them. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't get a chance to write back.
It's all right. I just want to make sure you're all set.
Good. Yeah, I am all set. I'm just going to present right from that slide deck.
Excellent. It's Friday. It's Friday.
I was just about to say happy Friday, everyone, but thought I'd wait for a few more people to get on. But yeah, I'm happy for the Friday.
That's the spirit, Judy. Keep going.
I know, right? It's possible. So, like I was saying earlier, we'll wait till about 12:35-ish.
Yeah. People need time to transition.
Yeah.
I wonder how many Normans we're going to have today.
I was just wondering the same thing. Judy, you haven't been in these meetings, but for some reason, anytime someone from the OLI team logs in, they show up as Norman Beer. Is their name? I don't know what.
It's because the link that John put in the OLI calendar that takes you directly to the Zoom meeting apparently was created by signing up for the meeting as Norm.
I see. I didn't catch that before.
You can probably change your name. Can't you change your name like on the fly?
Yeah, I think people weren't realizing that was even happening until we had like 3 of them in the line.
We should just all sign in as Norman Beer.
Yeah, I think that would be very fun. Only if we also try to be Norman Beer. If we were all trying to do impressions our own. So welcome, everyone. We're getting a flurry of people entering the room. We'll probably wait another 4-ish minutes to give that time to settle down and have everyone in and listening in. So I guess I can see if my share screen is going to work here. So I think that when I hit present, it takes over my whole thing.
You know what I do, Aaron?
What?
I do select, I do the advanced thing and select a portion on my screen. And then I just highlight the slide portion in the Zoom. Sometimes works. It's what I'm not I don't know if it'll work for you, but you might give it a try.
I've never seen that you could do that.
You'll see like an advanced tab right there.
That's very interesting.
And then I select a portion of my screen to share.
I've never used that advanced feature.
No, the thing is you got to make sure you don't move the thing because it's selecting
right
a portion of your screen.
Look, there we go. I'm on the wrong side. There we go. How's that look?
Good.
Cool. And thanks, Judy. I never knew that was even an option.
And when all else fails, I just make the middle part big and I minimize the side part.
Mm-hmm. I see. If I move this over, you're seeing what I...
It's still on the slide.
Oh, you're not seeing this window over top of it?
Mm-mm.
Okay, cool. That's cool. Okay, well then that gives me much more control. Welcome, everyone. If you're just joining, we're gonna give folks a few more minutes to log in. Oh, and of course, I have someone like right outside my house, like doing some sort of drilling or something. I don't think you guys could probably hear it, but it's like right in my ear.
I can't hear it.
Good, good. Okay, one more minute and we'll get started. Okay, I think the participant list has stabilized. Haven't seen anyone new pop in for a little while. Wait, I'm wrong. Still getting people in. I thought I saw Norm and then he popped out, unless it was someone just coming in on that. Oh, there's one.
Hi.
Hello. Welcome everyone. Okay, it's 12:35, so I think we'll get started. Welcome to the Torus community meeting for February. We have these once a month. If you haven't gone out to the Torus community page on our website, you'll see the list of meetings that we have scheduled. Today, we're going to talk about the learning dashboard, and so I have the resident expert with us here today, Judy Brooks, to help guide us through this process. So I'm going to turn it over to Judy now.
Thanks, Erin. And really, Erin and I will be collaborating on this. What we want to do is just communicate that this work is, associated with the Torus environment is beginning. And we want to communicate that, but also reflect back on what the dashboard was designed to do and how it's working from your perspectives, from what you can imagine a teaching perspective might be if you're not teaching, potentially even from a student's perspective, just to begin the conversation, to get ideas for, as the tool is being implemented in Torus, what are some considerations for design? And so we're here to remind you of what it is, and pick your brains around what it can be. So as you see here, it's designed to help instructors. Its original intent was designed to help instructors to see their students' learning state against a given set of skills that you want students to practice in the OLI environment. And so that you can see that how students are doing in time to make adjustments in your teaching as the course or the learning is occurring. So with that in mind, Erin is going to give us, remind us with a little demo of the learning dashboard. But as you see this, consider some things and jot down some notes so that we can come back and discuss. So consider the information that's providing and jot down ideas about how the data is useful. Does it not capture some data that you would want? What other kinds of information sources do you go to help you identify when changes are needed in your students, in your teaching to address students' learning needs, or that you would want to provide to your instructional team if you're not teaching. And then maybe other tools or sources that you use, and any questions that arise for you about the tool itself. And then we can come back and discuss. And so those are kind of the general ideas. We're going to come back and discuss how is it working, how could it be improved, and are there particular features that you would like us to consider. So with that, I'll hand it off to Erin to do a little mini walkthrough just to remind everybody what's this dashboard thing we're talking about.
Great, thanks, Judy. Yeah, I just have a really quick demo, and let me see if I can get to it. If it'll still highlight this, I'll probably have a new share. There we go. I'll just go back to my desktop. There we go. So are you seeing my screen? I'm in OLI at the moment. And I'm going to go into this chemistry demo. And then I'm going to go to the dashboard, particularly in this one. All the data that you're going to see in this demo, by the way, is not real students. We created this just to be able to show it off and demonstrate what it does. So this is a particular module in our Chemistry 1 course. And what this is showing you right now, and tell me, can you see this, or are there any other things in front of it? Okay. For this particular module, reaction stoichiometry, where there are 3 learning objectives that are tackled, for lack of a better word, in this module. And you can expand each one to drill down into what skills are, what are the component skills for that learning objective, and how students are not only participating with the questions that are tied to these skills, but also how they're doing against them. So you get a good view here in the aggregate of how a class, a particular class, is doing, where they fit in alignment with in mastering these objectives. So you have, you know, right now there's 2 students in green, and by the way, you can drill down into each of these, and I hope this pop-up is showing up. Sometimes Zoom has problems with that. Okay, thank you. And you can see that for these 2 students, they're in this high estimated learning. That means essentially they're working through the problems, they're getting to correctness, they're engaged, they're learning. Those in the yellow are those that are having a little bit more of a harder time. They're engaged, they're working with the problems, might not be getting to correctness all of the time. And then the red are those students who are not, or struggling essentially. And so you can drill down, and by the way, gray is those students who haven't engaged enough, haven't completed enough of the practice that's given to them in the course to really make any kind of determination of how well they're doing. But the other thing, some other features of the dashboard is you can see which students are in these categories. You could contact those students right from this link and send them an email, maybe scheduling office hours with them or something like that. Or you can drill in to a student view that allows you to see what they've actually accomplished and how they're doing against it. So this is telling you things that they've worked on or not yet against each of the activities against those learning, those skills. But let me go up a level and tell me if I'm going too fast. Forget how to go up a little. Oh, there we go. You can also drill into any one of these skills to see what questions in the course are listed against those skills, are tied to those skills, providing that practice. And you can see how the students on the whole are doing against each of those in terms of correctness. I think you can obviously even drill in further, but right here are those questions. And it also gives you an indication of what students are answering, what answer options are they selecting, to give you a sense of what the students are getting wrong. Just so happens that all of these students got it right, apparently. You cannot, let me see, I'm just gonna keep drilling in because you can do that. Oh, okay, see, when I click up here, it's showing the questions down here related to those and how students are, you can see here, this is a good view of how many students are answering wrong, what wrong answer they're selecting even. So the other features of the dashboard are showing some idea of participation report by student in the course. And you can also, any open-ended responses on any questions that are tied to these learning objectives are in this module list here. Right now, in this particular course, there's only one open-ended response. We have this My Response survey. Another cool feature of the dashboard is being able to pull this report up and see how students feel about how well they can do against these learning objectives. This is a survey that we have in the course that shows the how many students answered which selections. And they're basically telling if they can complete these objectives with support or not at all. And then there are the responses to their open-ended responses on this particular activity. And I can hide student names from below here. And this report can be used in a classroom setting to maybe used as a discussion tool as well.
Lauren, I'm sorry, Erin, I'm not sure if we're seeing your
Ah,
screen.
you're not seeing the pop-up. I apologize. See, I knew that was the case. Thank you, Judy. So this is that report I was talking about for the survey that we put at the end of this particular module in this course. It's giving you the aggregate responses to that survey where students are rating themselves against how well they think they can do against those objectives. And when I was trying to show you the student names, here are the open-ended responses the responses to the open-ended questions in that same activity. And usually what I had just demonstrated that you missed is an instructor can see which students responded to which or what their responses were, but you could use this report as a discussion tool by, hiding the student names very easily. And you could probably go over this in a classroom to talk with your students about how they're doing. So let me now go back to the other screen. Let's see. And then there's also a place where you can drill into the quizzes and see this one quiz in this module, how many of the students had completed it and what their answer options were in this quiz. So that's a really quick high-level reminder, orientation of the dashboard. Anyone else on the call, or Judy, is there anything that I might have missed showing that's important to show?
So I just think in summary, you can see that you can pick at the high level, oh, look, the one that I might choose to dig in on is the one that's most read, or the one that students aren't doing, but I'm expecting them to do, and like take some action, either to tell students, get to work on this, you need to be doing this, or to actually look at where are the misconceptions and then address those just in time, like in the next class session, and or with individual students to work through what the particular issues might be. So you can proactively, I guess, in a way, or just in time, really look at addressing students' learning needs. So it's going from that high level view, being able to identify where do I want to dig in, and then you can go down to a very detailed level. And you can leverage some of those details for discussion in class.
Great, thanks.
So I think that, yeah, I'm not seeing anything that you haven't covered. Are there any questions, or from your experience, things that you would like to see or talk, questions you have about what was just shown?
Can I ask a quick something?
Yeah, please.
Is there a way to incorporate somewhere one of the things that we try to emphasize more and more in classes is the fact that the sort of the iterative nature of knowledge building, and that is in part predicated upon maybe assignments that can be when you turn in a first draft and a second draft, or things that where you get feedback and then you get to try to get in the subsequent module and things like this. Is there a way whereby things like that can be incorporated into the dashboard, or is it just a matter of us creating that as part of the learning objective, and then the dashboard will track it, like students' ability to uptake feedback and incorporate feedback into their learning?
So if I understand you, Sebastian, let me just restate so I can understand. You're saying yes, currently the dashboard is just reporting what students are doing. And what I understand you to say is there a way or functionality that could be added such that if the dashboard were reporting to you or the students, this thing is a place where you need more practice, can that practice appear for them? Is that what you were implying?
Right. So yeah. So things like this, either sending them back to additional exercises they can do, or indication of, you did say you have 5 exercises or five activities that target the same outcome, and they get feedback on the first one. and because they did poorly, and then they do the same mistakes again on the second one because they didn't look at what it told them. Or conversely, they actually did, go back and
Right.
practice more and
Right.
pick that
We've
up.
actually, there's a couple ways, and then I'll call on Norm because I'm sure he has a response to this as well.
He has his hand up too.
Yeah. And so, the one response that I have to that is oftentimes we'll work with instructors to actually design those pathways into the learning. So as the student is participating in the activity, you can have pathways for the reveal activity, where if I answer right, I go off to do the next one. If I answer wrong, I have one or more additional extra practices that you might provide just in time. With respect to moving forward, I'll let Norman jump in here and complete the rest of that.
Yeah. You already make my question sound a lot smarter when you answer it this way.
Nice. But it is a great question, right? Because it gets at two different points, and one is a point of tension in the current structure of the dashboard and the way that it was originally envisioned to support a learning model, and the ways that it's been adapted to support new innovations. And then the second part of this is, as we look ahead, what are the pieces that we need to better support? And so I think, in the context of the current dashboard, the notion that all of the modern language courses have in OLI of that spiraling around learning objectives so that students are getting exposed to those learning objectives multiple times, the way that ends up showing in the dashboard is that, in module 1, they might have encountered a learning objective for the first time and are probably still in the red. And that's probably okay, because you know that in module 2, they're going to experience it again, and in module 3. And so you're not expecting them to achieve mastery of this objective until they've encountered these materials multiple times, and until they've gone back and taken the feedback and reapplied it, right? And so what ends up needing to happen there, if you're exposing if you're an instructor using the dashboard and you know this, you're fine. You see that students are sort of on track, but you're mentally making an adjustment. If you're exposing the dashboard to your learners, then you need to coach them on, hey, here's what you should be expecting to see. And in many ways, what that shows is that we have a underlying learning model that drives the dashboard, and a display that that didn't envision all possible use cases. And so sort of thinking about how can we help you provide better instruction to other users of the language courses and students within the current system is one piece. But then this gets at, when we look at Torus and sort of dream about what we want to see in the future, this notion of being able to support multiple models of learning and to have an interface and a visualization that's robust enough to handle those different models. If we have any hope of doing that, we have to collect these kinds of use cases. We have to know, hey, here's where it's doing great, here's where it's falling short. So this is a great example, both for immediate utility, but also the kind of stuff we want to dig into.
Bonnie, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, so it's no secret that I find the dashboard extremely confusing. I've talked to you and you guys about it. Is there a way perhaps to not get as much information if I don't want it? Like, could we say, do you want to compare students by activity, and go here? Compare students, I don't know, for how much of a lesson they've completed. I actually find the old dashboard easier to use, like the old one, because there's just so much here that I could spend an entire class time worth of minutes just trying to figure out what the heck to look at, right? So I think that for me, it's not as user friendly perhaps as it could be for people who are not learning specialists, but only who want to figure out what their students are doing after they take a quiz, right? So that's my issue.
Naburo, let's jump to let's address your comment, and then we'll go to Harley.
Yes, thank you. Yes, it's Naburo from NC State. I have a question about how learning objectives and assessments are connected. I understand there is KC model also. So how are these interconnected to each other?
So I'm going to take a quick stab at that one. And Judy, you may want to pile on to this. The model was built with this intention of flexibility. And so different course development teams have tied the assessments, the low stakes assessments and the high stakes assessments back to skills and then back to learning objectives in different ways. But at a very basic level, as it's structured, the learning dashboard assumes that we have learning objectives, which are composed of skills. Skills are tied to low stakes and high stakes assessment items. When we export that to Data Shop, things at the skill level are treated as KCs. And so this means that as you're investigating your learning model in Data Shop, you are able to just look at the low stakes activities, just look at the high stakes, or look at them together. And that sort of assumption of a reasonable learning curve is one of the inputs that that is assumed for the underlying statistical model. Does that answer your question?
Oh, perfectly. So am I correct? The single KC can be associated to multiple learning objectives.
Yes.
Got you. Thank you.
Great. Harley, let's hear your comment, and then I'd like us to get back into this discussion about the information that was presented there. And I want to follow up on Bonnie, with Bonnie, to find out, you know, this overwhelming amount, like what's really critical, and we can start to have that discussion in terms of what works that we want to keep, and what do we need to add or remove from the, I guess, from the interface, from your perspective, Bonnie. So Harley, go ahead and let's hear your comment, and then we can go on to some more of that discussion.
Yeah, I just have a kind of to dig into the detail a little bit more. So let's say I have 5 modules, and each of the modules have the same learning objective, like alongside many others. Let's just say, like, I'm hoping to see that, you know, not much mastery in the first module, but then it improves as we go along. So does the learning objective in the dashboard only measure kind of like learning within that module? So that's the first question. And second, is there any way to see this learning objective across the 5 modules?
So as currently structured, the skills and the learning objectives are calculated across the entirety of the course. So at any point when you look at the dashboard for a module, it's going to show you the student's overall estimate. And so if they've done a few activities in module 1 for a learning objective that shows up in module 1 and module 3, whether you look at it in module 3 or module 1, it's going to give you the same visualization, right? That
Gotcha.
learning estimate is consistent. And so if it's desirable for us to be able to split those out, what's the student doing? What's their knowledge state across the course? And what do we see their progress being in this module? That is a very useful piece of feedback, and that's a thing we can dig into.
I could see it possibly being useful if you know, like that's happening with the course, that they're putting learning like the same learning objective across different modules. I think that'd be pretty useful to make sure that there is improvement.
Yeah, well, and I think that there's, you know, we've been attempting to use the dashboard to also help inform course improvement, right? And so we've got 2 different use cases there, but I think the use case that I want to make sure that we never lose, and maybe the place that we continue to have the greatest aspirations, is how do we build this thing so that it can integrate with educators' instructional activities, right? You know, how do we make sure that this thing is built in a way that that anyone can look at it and say, yeah, I can look at this thing and know what I'm going to do differently in my classroom. And this is not just a dashboard issue, right? This is ed tech generally. How do I change what I'm doing, or how should I use this in my broader teaching practices? Keeps being a challenge, and we're gonna keep swinging at it.
Before we dive into that, more use cases and the Bonnie question, I know Norman has to leave. Are there any other technical back-end questions that you have on your mind that he can address before he goes? Okay, well, if they come up and we can't address them, we'll certainly bring them to his attention and bring those back, the responses back to you.
Yeah,
I also wanted to make sure you had the opportunity.
I also wanted to note that I'm not taking active notes because I feel like this is going to produce a lot of dense information that I'm just going to go back through the recording and make sure.
I am taking active notes.
Okay,
so
great. Thanks.
I'll capture any questions we can't answer.
And then the other thing I wanted to say is maybe I should leave up that demo of the dashboard as we talk through it. That might help as well. So I'm going to do that.
Sure.
I do have a somewhat of a technical question, which is how much backwards compatibility will there be between Torus and the current OI?
One of the requirements for Torus is that we leave no orphans. That one of the things that drove us to developing Torus was that so many other technical paths would require us to either abandon courses or invest so heavily in restructuring them that it wouldn't be the same course at the end. So the intent is that if you develop a thing or have developed a thing in OLI, it will migrate into Torus. It may require a little bit of touching on certain areas, because though we've got a really strong set of common activities and common capabilities, in the end, every development team puts their own flavor onto a course. And so we always end up with things that are a little bit different. And so when we hit those areas, there's going to need to be some decisions on, hey, do we automatically convert this, or do you go in and finesse this by hand? But at the end of this process, anything that was developed and running on the legacy platform will be running on Torus. It's the only reason, it's the only way we were willing to take on the project.
Cool. Thanks, Norm.
Thanks.
I have a quick question. How customizable is this the dashboard? If I want to conduct a study, for example, to measure the effectiveness of dashboard, I may want to do some, controlled study. Is it customizable?
It is only customizable to the extent that it can be turned on or turned off, and that what learning objectives and skills you have and the ways that those are mapped to the activities impact the final look and feel. But beyond that, in the current structure, it's a consistent interface. It's just different. Yeah. So in that kind of experiment, it may be that you create two versions of the same course with slightly different skills models and skills mappings, and then you can compare between those. But sort of, again, looking ahead, one of our ambitions, this is one learning model and one interface. And we saw pretty early on that if we're going to really authentically experiment, we need to be able to support multiple models of learning and multiple visualizations. And so we want to get to a place where that can be done both for experiments, but also just for day-to-day use, right? That just from our conversation today, it seems pretty clear that the dashboard that may work perfectly well, the visualization that really helps a statistics instructor, may not be the same dashboard for the kind of spiral learning model that the modern language department is using. And so making sure that we have the flexibility to customize these things is pretty important for us.
That would be fantastic.
Sebastian?
Yeah, I just wanted to I guess not elaborate, but echo the sentiment both Noboru's and Bonnie's, because you're right, Norman. What you're trying to do is really fitting a square peg in a round hole in a way, in the sense that if you're trying to reconcile the kinds of data that are needed to conduct research in technology-mediated learning or learning in general, and also provide data that are actionable and acted upon by instructors, you're not necessarily collecting the same kinds of data, right? So the work that Bonnie had done on French Online, for example, looking at with some degree of granularity at what was going on, required a PhD in statistics. And that, while it was great to have these data and to have the results and to really take this deep dive into, this is not something that a practitioner.
Watch it, bub.
Was that?
Watch it, bub.
No, it was great. I mean, it was great for educational research, but as the semester is going on, this is not the kinds of data that a practitioner, teaching 3-3 load, for example, is going to have time to look at in order to modify in real time, or even from semester to semester, their pedagogical practice, because maybe they do not need that degree of granularity. Maybe they do not need to know item by item, time on task, and et cetera, et cetera. But if you're an ed tech researcher, that's precisely the kind of data that you want, because you're trying to, so in addition to being turn on, turn off, looking at building a tool where you can in fact turn on and off various kinds of functionalities, so that you have access when it's time to get the report to the data that you need for the purpose that you need them for. That's really going to be a challenge, I think. What kind of data would an instructor need at the end of the semester or during the semester to inflect his teaching versus a researcher?
Yeah, and I think if you feel like you need to get a little more depth on the statistics, I can recommend a great course for that. So I think that this is actually, Aaron, let's make a note that we also want to circle back with Bonnie on this question of logging and data streaming, because she has suffered greatly in the in the pursuit of data analysis. But to give you guys a sense of the general model that we are pursuing for Torus, is that we want to log everything to an even greater degree, frankly, than we do in current OLI, and then create various mechanisms for streaming that data out in different formats to support different capabilities. And so that same data store may be used to stream information to a learning dashboard or different learning dashboards for use by teaching faculty, while at the same time we may want to be able to stream these data out in XAPI format, because students wants to export this to their personal learning record store. And at the same time, we want to be able to stream that data out, that data set out to data shops, so that we can dive in and do a deeper analysis, right? And so this notion of how do we make sure that we are appropriately collecting all of the information that may be needed, and then using these different endpoints to be able to stream it out as needed, is pretty central to Torus design. I think that it's influenced pretty heavily by some of the work that the cloud computing team has done in the ways that they built out the project zone. And we're learning an awful lot from them on that front. But making sure that this model works then will be a combination of how do we make sure that we've got the right endpoints and streams, but also let's learn from the places where what we were collecting was not up to the task and required just an obnoxious amount of post-processing, which I know was Bonnie's experience. And so let's avoid that.
Well, and Norman, if you want to go, I can show the rest of the group some of the questions that I had. And then.
Excellent. Thanks all. Sorry.
Thanks, Norman.
I'll talk to y'all later.
Yeah, I think it'd be really great to hear from you, Bonnie, and to understand more what it is you're looking for. What are the questions you're trying to answer, and what's the kind of time you have on task? I'm imagining it's not much.
No. So Aaron, if you could, I think some of the information is a question of why do I need this? So if you click into the red 3 dots, for example, right? All right, that gives me really no information. If you click into Sydney, it gives me an entirely huge list of information, and it doesn't tell me anything. It doesn't tell me which one Sydney got wrong. It doesn't tell me which one Sydney got right. If Sydney tried to do it 2 or 3 times, or if Sydney said screw this and I'm out. If you go back, Aaron. So that's the first thing, is that those little dots give me an overall view, but it really doesn't give me any information when I click on it. Aaron, if you go under class participation right below your mouse and you click on view participation and module by student, and if you click on Gregory, I don't know Gregory, same thing. I mean, and obviously Gregory is gray, so he hasn't done a whole heck of a lot. But again, if I type on the course page number, all I'm getting is that page and those exercises. I'm not getting any information about what Gregory's learning path was. I mean, obviously he did none here because it's gray, but if it was a red or a yellow student, it doesn't do anything for me.
It's really subtle, but it tells you, it's showing that down here, this tells you what they've worked on and what they haven't.
Right. But I mean, I don't,
Yeah.
and this is not to sound rude, but I mean, I don't care what a student worked on. I care about how a student worked on it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so the dashboard gives me information about what students have done, and not, as Sebastian is saying, how students are engaging with the materials.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. So, I mean, those are just 2 small examples of how I have to search really hard in order to see what the students are doing.
Bonnie, can you clarify what it means to see how the students are engaging with the material? What would that information look like?
Aaron, if you could go back.
Mm-hmm.
We go to all students again. Okay, so this one tells me, all right, so I've got all these students not doing stuff. I've got 3 in the red, 1 in the yellow, 2 in the blue, 2 in the green. I don't really care about the 2 in the green right now. Let's go to the 1 in the yellow. All right, and so Andrew here, he's done some, he hasn't done some, but what I don't know, Judy, is how many times for chemical reactions, moles and particles learned by doing, I don't know how many times Andrew attempted that. I don't know if he got it right on the first time or the 4th time. And so that doesn't, so just giving me a list of what he has or has not done doesn't help me understand where he is not understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So anyway, those are just 2 examples of how I have all of this information, but yet I can't do anything with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what would your follow-up be then, Bonnie? Can you explain the rest of the process, how you would close the loop if you had gotten that information?
So we have open-ended responses. I don't know if you have it in this course, but by each student's name, I can see what they have written. And I can see, okay, is it gender agreement? Is it syntax? Is it that they didn't put the period in because some of our exercises in French require the period, which has absolutely nothing to do with French grammar. And then I can say, okay, well, that's silly. I'm not going to worry about that. But from there, I can write to the student and I can say, okay, look, I saw the answers that you gave to this series of questions, and this is what you're doing, right? But I can't do that with the low stakes items or the items that are not written. So Judy, if you were taking French, I would want to know how many times it took you to answer a particular question. And I would want to know which questions you chose first, because seeing what you chose first allows me to analyze what you're not understanding. And I would think it would be the same for chemistry too.
So it's almost like you want to see, you don't want to just see a random list of all the stuff against that learning objective, right? You want to be able to see the order some sense of, okay, here's how they actually worked through those problems and how many attempts it took them to get to correctness, if they ever did.
Kind of like what Sebastian was saying. And then as another participant said, if we can look at that over and through modules, then we could actually see if students are improving over time and not simply within a 1 week module, which we know is not a ton of time in order to be able to learn high level concepts. And if you close hide activities there, Erin, under this right above there. So now I've got 2 yellow dots and a green dot. You know, ça me dit rien. It doesn't tell me
Yeah.
anything. So anyway, those are just some of my pointers, for things that I would feel I need to see.
So you almost want a full interaction history, like.
Yeah.
Like,
and I can get that if I look at the log data.
Right.
But nobody in their right mind looks at that log data. But yeah, that's the kind of information that I need, really.
Yeah.
If I'm going to diagnose students and do teaching and learning better, then that's what I need to be able to do.
Bonnie, how do you estimate the amount of time on task, even with that information it would take you to do that? Is it reasonable that other instructors would be able to do it if their number of students increased or, class size?
So would it be possible for me to share my screen and then I can show you what I'm thinking?
Yes. Let me stop my share and enable screen sharing. There you are.
Okay, so I went into an old course, and I'm sorry about the names, but there are no grades here. But you can see that when they write, like this one might have been done corrected as incorrect because they didn't use the person's name. I'm going to ignore that, and there's no period here. Here there's no space, but if I could see kind of this development of a student and look at a timeline, which, Judy, if you remember the really, really old, I'm going to stop sharing because there are names there. You remember the really old one?
Yeah.
I could see what they were doing, like literally. And I could look at a student's name and I could look across. So that would, and that would even, to my mind, that would even give us an opportunity to say, oh, look at question 21. Holy mackerel. Why did everybody get 21 wrong? And I can go into 21 then, and I can say, oh my God, it was coded wrong. Hey, Mark, fix that. Or I can say, geez, there's something wrong with 21 and I need to address the student.
Great.
Yeah, I'm wondering if some of that is in the grade book maybe, but probably still just as hard to interpret and get to. So yeah, some combination of some of those grade book features, I think, too, into this. Okay.
Are there other kinds of information that you, Bonnie, or others on the call,
yeah, please,
would like to promote, describe for us so that we can capture it, regardless of its presence or not, that it's priority for you?
So let me just finish by saying, if I'm grading a quiz and there are 10 questions, I can keep track of how many of those students are getting what wrong, right? But I can't do that here in an easy way.
Thanks, Bonnie. I appreciate all of that sharing. And as things arise for you, please feel free to chime back in.
That's right.
Yeah, I was going to mention something. I'm just trying to get it so you can actually see me a little. My lights are weird. I've mentioned this to Erin before, I'm pretty sure. But what we would love for logic and proofs, we do a lot of text entry, fill in the blank type questions. And we use regular expressions to grade them. When you look at the learning dashboard for an assessment right now, you just see which response category captured. So if they got the feedback for that's right, because it matched that regular expression, you get that. If they got one of the other ones, it just shows you which category it fell into. You don't get to see the actual responses, but that would be really hugely helpful if you could actually see, like, even just a list within the category of these were the things that people entered. So instead of premise, somebody said assumption, somebody said conclusion, somebody said formula, somebody said premise spelled in some hideously unpredictable way. So it would be good to be able to see for the text entry with regular expressions what the actual entry was, as opposed to just which response caught it. Because then for the more complicated ones, we can compare, are these wrong answers all the same? Are people cheating? We've had to deal with that a lot with answer sharing, and that would really simplify that matter.
Yeah, I was trying to, so this is a quiz drill down view, but yours has open-ended responses, not multiple choice. So it just shows you.
Yeah, like the multiple choice are fine the way they are for what we do with them, at least. But for the text entry, maybe I can find one for you and share my screen.
Yeah, because
That'd be great.
I don't really know what that looks like. I have to say, I don't think I've come across it.
Sounds like we have a thumbs up on this idea from Sebastian.
I just have to log in here, which is going to take forever. No computer. Oh my God.
So yeah, feel free while Dawn's queuing that up if there are other ideas or elaborations on that.
If you want to elaborate what I mean by this, and maybe that dovetails with what Bonnie was trying to say, is that if you're building in these functionalities of that are more process oriented, what goes first, what kind of mistakes they're missing, then as we are looking at these data, this time from a designer with a designer lens of improving the course, I bet you can lump these maybe into categories and then provide better feedback than just that's right, or you got it wrong, or try again. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So then the ways in which the students engage with these with the material, or if they engage with this, when there's they start with this one exercise, and systematically the students who start with this one exercise, they get it all wrong. Then you can build something that says, why don't you try something else first? Just something like that.
So John, you still looking?
Yeah, I just have to find an old section that'll actually have some data.
Well, let us know when you get that done. But in the meantime, and we'll cut in. But in the meantime, I'm wondering, so I've heard some kinds of information that would be helpful. And I'm going to assume that there's information that the dashboard does provide that you would think we've got to keep that. We just need it in a different form, but we can dive into that more. And if something comes saliently to mind for you about that, please speak up. But then I'm wondering if there are any other particular features that exist, don't exist, or that are just priority for you. And other than what we've discussed already. So when we were first starting this, we weren't putting in things like participation because of the intent of OLI way back was that give students freedom to practice, to make sure that they didn't feel penalized if they didn't get it right, things like that. But then faculty started to say, but I need to give them a participation score. And so that's why participation emerges as one of those categories. And it's for larger classes, can be easier for those faculty to assess, are my students, at least at a minimum, doing this work? And they're able to give them some sort of motivation points for that. Are there things like that?
So for me, clicking is not a question of participation. It's a question of the low stakes, because I don't give tests before I give quizzes, right? So I understand the original desire, I've been here a long time.
All right.
The original desire was to, give the students that kind of, anonymity. But if I don't know how they're doing on the low stakes, then I can't help them.
Right. Thanks, Bonnie. Dawn, did you have
Yeah,
a
I
thought?
just have to figure out which window it is to, there we go. I think that's the one. Are you seeing the
Yeah.
thing? Okay, so here we have one of the questions. Blank argument is one that has all true premises and whose premises support the conclusion. So if they type in the right answer, which is either cogent or sound, it catches this. And then all of the others apparently went into just the any other answer. Well, all but 4. Some of them contain the phrase strong with or without the word inductively in front of it. And then there's the catch-all. It would be really nice to know what the answers these 34 people put in, so that we could know what half of the class is thinking is right here, and where in the text we have problems or whatever. This one is fine because it's all multiple choice. And I think that's it on this quiz. So there's just the one question there.
That's a good example.
But that's the sort of thing. We have like 3 different answer categories, and it only shows you which category it falls into, but there's lots more information for the middle category here. The catch-all, I put that on everything. So if one of the other things doesn't catch it, it says, sorry, here's the right answer, or something like that. It would be really, really nice to know what those weird mistakes are. We also use it for translation problems where you get a bigger variety of wrong answers, and it would be even more helpful there. So I ran out of stuff to say. Yeah, that's about it. Just knowing what was actually typed in for each of those wrong answers, like if you could just click on it and it would show a list of the different entries, that would be just fine. As far as analysis and reporting type stuff that you could do along with that, we don't really use the learning dashboard much because, it's easier for what we're looking at to go in and look at the individual attempts. But if you were doing like comparisons and things, it would be great to see like 90% of the people who got question 1 wrong also got question 3 wrong, kind of thing. Things like where there are trends and links, that if people are getting certain clusters all incorrect, that would be nice to be able to see at a glance too. But not nearly as important as being able to see that's just since you're asking for stuff, kind of.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
The actual entries, that would be,
of course,
very useful. Like enough to actually use the dashboard as opposed to not using it.
Right.
So
great.
Okay.
Thank you, Dawn.
Yeah,
you're welcome. Thank you guys. And I will shut myself up.
So I've heard a number of ideas here, starting from who needs the dashboard. There's the teaching and learning use case, there's the research use case. So we have those categories of users and the kinds of information and the level of detail of information that needs to be available for both. We focused a lot here on the instructor use case, and we're hearing having, some of these, the patterns of use that students, I'll group it into that request, sort of like, what are the patterns that students are following, so that we can assess how to address either a group of students falling into that pattern or individual students with more specific recommendations, and even perhaps provide into the system ways for them to do the right kinds of practice associated with those misconceptions, errors, whatever the case may be. So that's kind of some of the stuff that I'm taking away right now. And of course, with a lot of detail. And I see Bonnie's adding or change the questions materials, right?
Right. Harley has his hand up.
Harley.
Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to unmute myself here. I have a comment on participation if we're ready to move on.
Sure.
So I think one particular thing is to just be able to see who's not participating in a little bit easier of a way on the dashboard than to first go to the student roster and then have it sort into like low to high or something. And possibly not just to see the zeros, but to see at a certain point, like, I don't know, 50 or 75%. But I think something that's would be particularly useful for the instructors I'm helping out is they want to have like participation be at 100 or near 100 at a certain point at a certain date. It's like you need to finish these modules before class. So, and not, there's no way to do that. So we're doing it by various workarounds at the moment. So having something where you can actually see everyone is here and there are these students who are not here by a certain point would be really nice.
Thank you. That was the other kind of category that we had discussed was range of the data that's being pulled. Currently, it's at the module level. It would be nice to see that over the course of modules. And also placement. We haven't really dived in, but Harley just alluded to particular placement and basically ease of access to those things that you consider priority for seeing first, second, third. We made our best assumptions in the old dashboard and did some user testing, but now that we're considering, we want to make sure that we're adjusting for the current state. So we've heard some things around range and placement of information.
Dawn just added another comment about being able to see if multiple students are submitting at the same time or within.
Yeah, when we do have cheating issues, it's people like, I would assume sitting and saying, what are we filling in on this? What are we filling in on that? And like a cascade from one person submits the quiz, finds which answers they got right. They tell everybody, everybody fills those in. Somebody else goes second to get the things the first person got wrong, sort of is, I'm sure you could see that pattern. I just don't know if it would be feasible. Possibility and feasibility are quite different, I know. But if I can think of the idea, it might be possible to find it easily.
Yeah, I guess
I would think especially like a cascade of lots of submissions in the same order and the scores get progressively higher would be some kind of red flag usually, something like that.
So if I hear you correctly, really the use case is plagiarism detection.
Essentially, yeah, or answer sharing of any kind. I don't know if you call it plagiarism if it's a multiple choice question, but yeah.
Right.
So yeah, because that's where we end for our lab problems. I don't know if you could do the same thing there. It might just be scores populating all at the same time that would be the flag there. If lots of people are doing the same activity in your course at the same time, unless you're telling them to do it during class or something. A lot of people do that. They say, let's all work the problem together since everybody's got a laptop, kind of thing. Or now that we're all at home, it's like, now that you're all on your computer anyway, we might as well work through it. But if you're not doing that and half of your students are submitting the homework at the same time, there is likely going to be hinkiness there. And can we find it? Can we, because if everybody is getting together and cheating, they're either having a hard time or they're lazy gits and deserve to be punished for being naughty. But just there's the if they're struggling with something and all having to collaborate to figure it out, then there's something that we can be doing better on the creating the course, teaching the course side of things as well.
Great.
It sounds like I heard a couple things with regard to assessments. Not only this like timestamps would be nice, I guess is what I'm hearing, but as well as, what attempt it was. So those two things we don't currently show in our assessments. Not that I'm saying timestamps is the answer, essentially, Dawn, to what you were saying, but that's something that would help, right? If you started to see, if you saw the timestamps of submission, and you see them all very close together and they all have similar answers, you could probably make that determination. So yeah, just wanted to summarize that.
I wonder if there's even like a like an estimate that we give on learning, where you could say we're estimating that the student is cheating. Or I don't know.
Yeah, and I think
Interesting thought. Yeah, definitely.
yeah, I think keep the thoughts coming and document them. I think really what we want to do is generate the use cases, the questions, and we don't have to find the solutions today, or but yeah, definitely keep your minds brainstorming on potential solutions. But if we can generate even, I'm wondering if we wanted to switch gears from the teaching and learning environment to the research environment. Are there things that folks would like to articulate around what it is they're trying to do from a research perspective that the tool can help with? Looks like, oh, there's Noboru. I was like, I hope he didn't drop off the call. Or Sebastian or other folks who are thinking in that way. Or is there more concreteness around those details that we can discuss? I see Bonnie has her hand raised. Go, Bonnie.
So for me, it's also a question of improving the materials. And so having some detail about, how many out of 100 students got this particular question wrong, that information would send me to the course, right, directly. And by the same token, if everybody got it right, irrespective of the timestamp, then I would also maybe want to see if, per Ken Kettinger, if it's too easy, then I'm not really testing perhaps learning along the way. But I want to be able to, when you see a textbook, you're like, okay, this exercise stinks, and you don't even give it to your students. I want to be able to do that same thing with an online course.
Perfect. Yeah, that's definitely a nice use case. Go ahead, Noboru.
Thank you. So if I may, the data shop, right, in some sense, a learning dashboard, and you can do a lot of the research on it. So when I was mentioning about the customization, I was thinking to design effective learning dashboard for teachers. So one of my students, actually, Ali, I see her online. I wonder if she wants to speak up. Please do so if you like, Ali. But anyway, so we are wondering, what kind of the learning dashboard functions best for teachers. We may have some hypotheses we want to test, right? So we may want to test a version of the learning dashboard with the B version, right? Kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was what I was thinking.
Okay. For some reason, I was extending that into the realm of when you want to do some sort of how are students doing in this course, more deeper study, like a longer term learning science study. And I wasn't sure if you were talking about from that perspective. You're really talking about from the design of dashboards for instructors.
True. The effectiveness of the dashboard, yes.
Yeah. Okay, good.
And also the teachers, right? Teachers, they are serious about student learning. They want to know how well their students are doing. So they may want to do some customization, as I hear, right? Some teacher may want to see breakdown of the students' answers.
Yep. Great. Well, I feel like we may have exhausted the space, Aaron. I'm not sure. No need to hang around. If this is really the initial opening discussion, we'll take this information back. We're developing an internal process for design that includes targeted outreach and getting more information to inform design, and then coming back to the larger community. So, doing some of the traditional design approaches to identifying the requirements and all of the ideas that people have, prioritizing those, bringing those back to the community, and looking at ways to iteratively refine as this thing goes into the Torus system, generally speaking. So this is really the first of other discussions that we'll have around this topic. Aaron, Did you want to?
No, I was thinking the exact same thing. Like we might have exhausted all the high level topics. And of course, if you guys have things to say still, please, please raise your hands, speak up. But yes, this will be the first of of many conversations about how this will go. And of course, we continue to have these meetings monthly on other topics as well. But what this really made me think about is the information that we're collecting even for the dashboard in terms of features, feature requests and requirements. You know, in Torus, we're designing many different types of audits and visualizations, and we want it to be a more robust tool for both researchers and teachers and designers. So, you know, we have these different, not just use cases, but audiences. And I think what I'm hearing here is we don't need necessarily separate spaces for these things. A lot of it overlaps. So it'll really be interesting as we dive into some of those other tools that we provide and functionality to see where that overlap is and how those things are working out. I think some of that we haven't even shown much of our audience, because we've actually designed some tools that are part of our Echo environment, our authoring environment, that get at some of the things that you guys are requesting, although not necessarily real time, more in the aggregate for iterative course development and design. But maybe some next steps are to show some of those tools and where we've headed with those to see how that might impact the dashboard as well. I don't know. I'm sure we'll follow up with some other stuff. But those,
yeah, and potentially to just also re-articulate back to you what we heard so that you can correct our understanding if need be.
Yeah. So yes, if you guys have anything else, nothing else to comment on, just want to share my screen just to show you the next date. The date for the next meeting. It's March 15th, same time. We have it slated as Learning Dashboard 2. I figured that this conversation would probably extend over at least 2 sessions. And then, of course, we plan to follow up individually and with domain groups like the languages and different course groups, course authoring groups to dig into the specific requirements for their courses. So no, that will be happening as well. But please join us for our next discussion where we'll probably, like Judy said, reiterate some of what we heard and maybe even have some deeper questions to get at some of that stuff.
Right. I think that, Erin, you mentioned the interesting point. Actually, it would be nice if we can make connection between dashboard and authoring system. Right. For the course developers, they want to actually going on. Maybe they can tell if the connection between the learning objectives and skill model is appropriate, right? They can learn that from dashboard, and they want to change the course content on the fly. If you can connect dashboard to the authoring tools, that would be great.
Yeah, in fact, as I was thinking about this and as I was talking about the different design audit tools we have in Echo at the moment, right now there's 2 separate things, right? Because they're 2 separate systems. We have OLI delivery and we have OLI authoring. Torus is already combining both of those so that you do both in the same application. And so that does lead to maybe a different idea of the learning dashboard, incorporating some of those elements that we have already in the design audit. So we might even, Judy and I will talk offline and figure out what we do for the next session, but maybe showing some of those auditing tools that we have might spark more ideas for the learning dashboard even. But yes, we were very excited to have it all integrated as one system that also has, as you just suggested, rapid publishing. So you can make changes on the fly and push those changes out to students much faster than our current publishing process. So
I'm sure you guys I mean, you always have a method to your madness, which is great. But I was just thinking, as we're having these ongoing discussions, I mean, that whole team, you've been looking, first of all, you have a really intimate and broad knowledge of learning at CMU in general and the way people have been using these things, as well as your own ideas about learning and learning sciences and so on and so forth. And so it's great to be able to generate, oh, I want this, I want that, or how about, but I was wondering if that might be helpful at some point in the conversation, if after we've exhausted and said our part, if maybe there are areas that you're interested in specifically, or conversations that you've had about choices and design choices and things like this, so that we can either reflect on this, riff on it, talk through it, and maybe it would even trigger additional ideas in how we can appropriate and these tools. So.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful idea, and we should definitely prioritize the idea around combining these two, the input that we're getting, making sure that we understand the input that we're getting, talk about what the intent is behind the design ideas, right? And show some things, like show some, just so that we have concrete things to imagine how these things play out. And in the past, that's been part of the workflow, the design interaction with the community, is to really just show them mock-ups along the way and to have conversations around the instantiation of the ideas and the needs in a concrete environment before they start to get built out, so that we can refine and then build. Yeah, Erin and I will definitely plan to take that idea back as well. I think that's a really good step in the process.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where I was going to when I started thinking about the design audit tools. And I started thinking, well, those are things I really rely on, that maybe some of you haven't even seen yet, but some of it is what you're asking for as part of the dashboard. So I think
it addresses some of Bonnie's points early on.
I think so too.
As well, but not fully, but it's definitely a partial.
Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, and to Judy's point, yes, we want to have this not just a one-way kind of information gathering, then we go away and do some stuff and hope that it works for you, but we really want this to be a two-way, conversation and back and forth. So we'll make sure we include more of that in our upcoming session. Thanks, Sebastian. And thank you all. Thank you all for coming and participating and sharing your ideas and how you use it. That was so very interesting, is to really know how you're using the dashboard, how you would like to use the dashboard. So this has been just amazing. Mark, you popped on camera. You got anything? You have some closing thoughts? No?
That's
okay.
his goodbye.
Okay.
That's his, I'm still here.
Nice. Well, again, thank you all, and join us next time.
Will do. Thank you all.
See you guys.
Thank you. Bye for now.
Bye.
I'm going to head off.
Okay. Have a nice weekend, everyone.
We'll schedule a meeting, Erin. Follow up.
Sounds good.